All right, Abrar Ahmed is injured. Hafiz is already making excuses for the first match at Perth. Sarfraz Ahmed has dropped 3 catches in the tour match leading up to the first test. So all in all, his tour is starting pretty much the way it does every time. Pakistan's gonna get shellacked 3-0. We're gonna go home all sad. I'm joined by Zen today, and we've got a special guest. His name is ZK, and he runs a YouTube channel called ZK Ki Bakwaas. And he's going to add some of that bakwas to our show today and to the normal amount of bakwas that we already have on this show. So, welcome, man. How are you doing?
Thanks so much, buddy. Thank you so much. I would love to contribute with my bakwas as always. And to be honest, I always thought it was bakwas, but once people started following and started subscribing to my channel, I found out that there are quite a few fans out there that love my bakwas. So I don't know if I should change the name or I should continue to
You
call it
should
bakwas.
definitely keep it. Definitely keep it. I will say that, your YouTube has quite a bit of subscribers. We have 22. So this is like we have a celebrity on our show. So this is like our first big get on our podcast. So we appreciate you coming on for sure.
All good, brother. We all got to start somewhere. I'm just here to take those 22.
Just take him, right? Take him for your own show. All right, yeah, let's get into it, man. I want to ask. So we've been talking on the show about last 2 episodes we've been going through. We watched the tour match. We kind of dissected that a little bit. We went through Shan Masood's double hundred. We went through his captaincy a little bit. We went through the debate of Rizwan and Sarfraz and who should play. I want to get your take. Like, what do you think this team is looking like going into this tour? What are they going to do? What do we expect? I know expectations are pretty low right now, but what do you see this tour as? How do you think it's going to go?
To be honest, like even more than the World Cup, I've always been scared of the Australian tour because no matter what 11 we've gone in with, right? We've always been destroyed. And this has always happened. So for me, anytime we talk about Australian tour, I always think that, I'm gonna think about all the positive things that can happen. So for me personally, I was really excited about Syme on the tour. I was really excited about finally seeing some domestic performers get some chances to play, right? But at the same time, when I saw the game against the Prime Minister, was it the Prime Minister 11? So when I
Yeah,
when I saw the
yeah.
game against the Prime Minister 11, I don't really see much changing, to be honest. Right? Like I thought this was a great opportunity where you can actually sit out Imam and play Saim because Imam is your first choice anyways, right? So regardless of what he does in this game, you're gonna play him anyways. But what if you give Saim a chance and let's see what he's all about, right? So I never saw that happening. At the same time, I I would have expected that, maybe we'll, try Mohammad Wasim out, see what he's made out of. We didn't really try that. So there wasn't really a lot that they tried, right? So I didn't really see where they were going with their approach in this game. Uh, Giving more game time to Babar Azam again. I mean, would you see any other big player playing a game with Prime Minister 11? Like, would you ever see Virat Kohli playing this game? So for me, overall, I was excited because when I saw certain selections and I saw, they're really, coming up with a plan. And maybe this time around, it might be different. Unfortunately, it's the exact same thing. Some faces have changed. So in that sense, like, I don't really know how to approach this series, but I guess time will tell, right?
Yeah, I mean, Saima Ayub, like we had a heated discussion on this Saima Ayub thing, right? He got picked, he got selected in the squad, and so there's 4 people on this show that are we just kind of alternate whoever's available. We do that. 4 of us were attending that podcast, and everybody said that Saim shouldn't play, and I was the only one saying he should. I was gonna say put him in the first test, see what he can do. Play him in the Prime Minister's 11, see what he can do. But that didn't, like you said, that didn't happen. So I don't like this. Like you're absolutely right. I 100% agree with you that if you're gonna pick players, who your intent is to give them exposure, then you have to give them exposure. They can't just sit and go back home. Simon, you could be playing, national T20 Cup. He could be doing other things at home.
See,
Uh,
see,
Go ahead.
that's something, like, yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. Like that's something I wanted to bring up because what were the mistakes that cost us the most in the World Cup? It was basically not having a good bench, right? And that is something that was repeated over and over. And if we're going to go ahead and make this exact same mistake, right, then what's really the point of changing things around? If you're going to continue to do the same thing, right, you cannot expect different results. So again, if you're going to pick Sime up, not give him the opportunity to play either domestic tournaments or do anything else, and he's just going to stick around and sit with the team and do nothing, like what really are you getting out of it? That's my question. Prime
That's
Minister's
exactly my
11.
point.
I mean, give the dude a chance, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
And what kind of
but I think the
insecurity?
argument that they would make is that the argument that management would make, I think, is that you know we've picked these guys. If there is a need for them, we'll play them. But until somebody fails, they're not going to. I don't agree with this approach, but I think that's what their mindset would be, and they would wait until somebody fails. We can disagree with that, but it is what it is. They're going to do what they're going to do. I think they should have played him, but you know,
I mean, I can
My
almost
point
guarantee
was
you. Yeah, go
no, no.
ahead.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead, man.
Like my I think what's going to happen, and this has happened in the past all the time, they're going to wait for Imam to fail miserably, right? And then put Simon in all that, heat, and give him like the third test when Imam has failed like miserably. And that, to be honest, is not the greatest introduction, right? I would rather bring him in when the situation is not as tense, right? And then really see what you can do, because if Imam is an automatic choice, then what kind of insecurity does Imam even have,
yeah.
right?
Imam is an automatic choice for the first test, but so my thing was the reason why I said play Imam in the tour match was because it was supposed to be match practice. That's the way I saw it, where it was gonna give him a chance to see what the pitches are like, but that pitch was like the opposite end of the spectrum when it came to what they're gonna face in Perth. So I mean, hindsight is 2020. Like now we're like, yeah, you should have let Sign play because it was just like the whole match was like dead, right? Like it was almost like super dead. They picked up what was it like four wickets, 5 wickets, six maybe at most. Any mom picked up one of those, so there
Yeah.
wasn't really like you're not gonna play like any part timers really, and I mean you might play some depending on how it goes. But if Buxton is bringing in part timers, then you know that things aren't going as good as they should be going. But I think that was it. Is that the pitch wasn't, and this is what Hafiz was saying too. Is the pitch for the match, the practice match was trash. But then I was reading up on it a little bit, and it's just the way the weather's been in Australia. Like it has nothing to do with like the curators or anything. I don't think. It's just the way the weather's been that they weren't able to get the pitch that they wanted for this tour match. So
Even
I
if it was
agree with
deliberate,
you.
like even if they produce that pitch with the intent of like we don't want to give these guys a pitch similar to what they're gonna face, I think that's fine. If you look at back to the last time Australia toured Pakistan where they beat us on those dead wickets, we like Ramiz Raja came out and actually put out a statement and he said we want to give them dead wickets because we want to neutralize their good bowling, and we still fucking lost. So it's
But I mean, that
home
doesn't make
countries can do
that
that.
piece
You're allowed to do that. I have no problem. Hafiz is just being a little loser. I think you're allowed to do
that
that.
piece itself doesn't make sense because if they're neutralizing their good bowlers, they're neutralizing ours too, right? Like we
और
do
हमारे तो
fast
इतने अच्छे भी
bowling.
नहीं हैं. We're
Yeah. Right?
aren't even that
Yeah,
good.
So
they
and
forgot
they're
to
better.
neutralize our city batting,
Their
basically.
low, yeah, their lineup is better than ours. So you're gonna expect you're almost playing into their hands, right? Because they have the heart and the grit to keep going and keep pushing on a dead wicket. Pakistan, the moment that they feel like it's not going their way, their shoulders drop, their bootiyan drop. So it's like it's
But that's the Australian way, right? Like
yeah, 100%, yeah,
you give them like time to adjust, they will, and they
yeah,
will come up with a plan, right? And that's the
100%.
Australian way.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's what they did in the World Cup. They started out 0-2, and then and then they went unbeaten after that, right?
और
All the way to the final.
पाकिस्तान का मसला है is like सारा मेहनत हमने 1947 में कर ली. उसके बाद से they've decided to we're going to stop working hard. We're not going to work
उसके
hard anymore.
उसके
This is
बाद
it.
से हवा निकल गई थी हमारी. So 47 के
Basically,
बाद.
that's what it is.
That's good. But yeah, so like, what do you, ZK? What I want to ask you, what do you think is, what would you consider a positive result for Pakistan in this series?
To be honest, I think getting a few draws, I think it's pretty positive. Uh, I mean, if they can somehow manage to do like just lose like one test match and like do like two draws, I think that'd be pretty positive. But to be honest, like, early on in the series, if you manage a draw, right, it does increase your chances to maybe win a game, you know,
Yeah,
because
I
like,
agree.
the third test is pretty much, it comes down to the fitness, the mindset, because
Yeah.
third test
But you
can
know what the
like,
problem
go
is?
anywhere.
Sorry to cut you off. I think the biggest problem with that is the first match is at Perth. And that is, I think, the where we're going to have the most issue is that pitch is going to be really difficult to play on. I think the our best chance is either MCG or Sydney. Sydney is probably our best chance
And
to
see, the
do
problem
anything.
this time around is like I even last time Ponting said this is the weakest Pakistani bowling to like
And he said it again, right?
come to Australia. I mean, this time he might be right because to be
Yeah.
honest, like yes, we have taken our top performers, but sometimes we do have to see because oftentimes this is my biggest problem when I actually review our top performers in the domestic circuit. I mean, they are not as impressive, to be honest, when I see them and they're
Yeah.
not international products. So even right now, what I've seen so far, like yes,
The
uh,
quality just isn't
Khurram has.
there, right? Like it's our domestic competition QEA is just not up to the level that you need to be able to take people on these tours. That's
That's what I'm seeing, right? So to be
yeah.
honest, like Shaheen, sure, but other than Shaheen, like Khurram or even Mir Hamza, like Mir Hamza must have been good before, but like right now he's not at its peak, like in terms of his speed and everything. So to be honest, then like you're probably either looking at Hassan Ali or you're looking at Muhammad Wasim, right? But then people are going to say again that, oh, why do you take the other guys? But to be honest, I would rather play Hassan Ali and Muhammad Wasim just primarily because they look more like international products to me compared to the other two guys.
Yeah, but I don't. So that kind of goes counter to the logic that we said earlier, right? Like if, if we're taking these bowlers based on domestic, like Mir Hamza, Amir Jamal, and Khurram Shahzad, right? I think you gotta give Khurram Shahzad a game. I think you have to give him the first test.
I mean, I
Uh,
was impressed with like the line and length and the channel he bowled. I mean, he did
yeah,
stick to like a good line and length. What do you expect from a test player, right? So
yeah,
that was definitely there.
yeah.
But when I look at him, like just I mean, if I ask you, man, like are you a fan of Khurram Shahzad or do you have a poster of Khurram
No,
Shahzad in your room?
I
Like,
what if I said I do? Let me show it to you right now. I'm joking. I'm joking. I don't have a
I
I don't
mean,
have a poster of
then
Khurram Shahzad.
I mean, he has to prove himself, right? Like Usman will put up that poster if he gets maybe a fifer or something, right? So, I mean,
I have it
let's
in my
see,
cart.
let's see what happens. Yeah.
but to be
So,
honest, I'd be more than happy if he proves me wrong. I'd be more than
yeah,
Yeah,
happy.
and that's what
100%.
we often say, right? Like we can pick our optimal 11 all day long. Ultimately, we want this team to do well, whoever it is. We had a really heated discussion about Sarfraz and Rizwan in the last one, and I'll
I
get to
think the
your take on that.
bowling I think the bowling isn't the biggest problem here, though. I think it's the batting mainly. Like if you think about it, even against the Prime Minister's 11, if Sean Masood didn't make what he made, we'd be 170 runs short, right? Like we'd be maybe sitting at 200 instead of, or what did he make? He made a double century. Did he make a double century? So
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'd
yeah,
be, and
201.
we declared at like 380
90
for
Yeah,
390
or
for
I
390
nine.
or
wouldn't put too
We'd be
much
sitting at
stock into that,
90
honestly. Like,
if he didn't make those runs, right? So
yeah, I
I think I'm,
disagree. I
I'm more
think
worried
the
about the
bowling is
batting.
a much bigger concern. I think these bowlers are not gonna
Runs on
get
the
much
board
time.
is a good thing, right? Like, or if you have faith in your batting to be able to chase it. Like, I don't think your mom is going to score more than like 5 or 10, for sure. I have more faith in Abdullah Shafiq and Sean Masood, but there's a few. I mean, besides that, like and when they get you early on, they break through early on. It kind of hits you a little bit, right? So I don't know. The batting is a much bigger concern to me than the bowling. Pace is
I mean,
pace.
respectfully,
But
the
we don't
batting,
even
to be
have
honest, doesn't look as bad to me. But bowling, this is the first time, to be honest, even I am looking at the bowling and I'm questioning that. Okay, sure.
yeah.
How
There's
are we
at
gonna
least
get those wickets?
yeah, even in the last tour, right? 2019, we took a 16-year-old Naseem Shah. He was 16 at the time, right? 16 or 17,
And
and we
Muhammad
took
Husnan and Muhammad Musa, who are all
Musa
like
Khan,
less
right?
than 20.
No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this time around, like Zk is mentioning, this time around it looks even worse because there's nobody that has expressed pace. Even our fastest bowler, I think, would be Shaheen. Is not the bowler that
Mm,
he was a couple of years ago, where he was
yeah,
bowling 145 plus, right? Mohammad Wasim Jr. is probably the fastest bowler on this team. I don't know if you guys think
probably.
otherwise, but he can
And
consistently bowl 140 plus, right? And but his problem is that he's not really gonna bowl line and length. He's primarily he doesn't have an outswinger. He primarily bowls in swing to the right hander, and that's not really gonna trouble too. I think the bowling is a much bigger problem in Australia right now than our batting. I think our batting can probably put up 300 runs. Probably not at Perth, but maybe at MCG and
I'm talking
Sydney.
strictly first test, yo.
Yeah,
yeah, see, Perth is
Yeah.
going to be very challenging because this Australian bowling lineup, like they're going to come
they're
at
gonna
you.
murder us, man.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to say. That to be honest, I don't know how we got to this point. I can understand Naseem Shah got injured, but how do we all of a sudden get to a point where we literally have no bowlers to take? with us. Like I know there are injuries, but there has to be somebody in the circuit, like other than the few guys that are injured, that could at least bowl like 140
यार
plus,
लेके
right?
गए हैं ना राना फही मशरूम किया है ना साथ he's gonna he's
Yeah,
gonna get you 10
Rana ji,
wickets.
matlab, Rana ji, I don't know what Rana ji is gonna do. But to be honest, like, I mean, compared to what you have, I wouldn't mind playing Rana in my lineup,
Yeah.
because
I,
I
I
mean
I
he's
have
an
him
attack
in, and
bowler.
he played the Prime Minister's 11 match. I think he's gonna play. So let's do this,
Yeah.
right? Let's do your lineup for the first test. So give
So
give me your openers for the first test in
I
Perth.
mean, something that is realistically gonna happen, or do you want me to give you like my wish list, like
No, no,
what I
your
what I
wish
wish
list.
for?
Your wish list. I don't, who cares what's gonna
So,
happen?
uh, well, I know I can guarantee you it's definitely not gonna happen, but I'll definitely give you my lineup. So I personally, I would I believe anytime when conditions are dangerous to play in, you gotta go in and attack, right? You cannot just try to hang in there, because it's Perth is a ticking time bomb. You can keep hanging in there, like eventually you're just gonna lose your wicket, right? So I would probably play Abdullah Shafiq with Saim. That's what I wanted to do, and which is why I wanted Saim to get that game. Uh, and then if that would have not worked out, Imam would have definitely like walked back into the team. But yeah, so I would have definitely seen Saim go in with Abdullah Shafiq. I would have definitely kept Shan at number three, and then you have Babar. Uh, I would play Rizwan primarily based off of what I saw from him in the previous series uh, in Australia. And just based off of that, I would have kept Rizwan in, but I would send like Saud before Rizwan. So those are my six. Uh, I would play Fahim Ashraf, and he would basically play as like my bowling all rounder. And then you have what? This is seven, and then you have four guys left. So I would have liked to go in with four seamers. So I'd go in with my three seamers. One would be Shaheen, other would be Wasim Junior, and I would probably go with the Hassan Ali. Uh, as much as I wanted to go, so before the game started, I really wanted to give Khurram or Mir Hamza a chance. But based off of what I saw, to be honest, like they're both gonna get murdered.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
very
you
ordinary.
know,
You're right.
it was very ordinary bowling. So based off of that, I'd probably go in with Hassan Ali. So my three seamers would be Hassan
लेकिन यार
Ali, Mohammad
हसन अली भी
Wasim,
कोई बहुत बड़ी
and
चीज नहीं
Shah.
है वो he's gonna get murdered too I think.
यार जो भी है इनसे बेहतर है. So it's one of those
Yeah,
things, right?
I
Like,
see the point. I see the point.
so
And then are
he
you
is
taking a spinner or
he's
no?
the most, yeah. Well, with spinner I was, well, अब तो कोई भी Abrar नहीं कह रहा होगा, but to be honest, like Abrar was like an obvious sort of choice. But I don't know if you guys noticed or not. Even Abrar, now I don't know if this was because of the injury or he had a niggle before going to this game, but he didn't look like himself. Like the Abrar that I knew of would get more
Yeah.
bite, like and even his like googly wasn't getting any grip, right? So maybe he was probably injured even before. I have a
Yeah.
feeling.
I
And
read somewhere, I read a tweet today that said that he had complained about foot pain a few months ago. And again, we talk often about like PCB not managing injuries well. We talk more about fast bowlers in that regard, but this is an ongoing issue, right? This guy, people complain, they're like, yeah, fuck off. They send him in the team anyways. Then they get injured in a game, and then they have to, it becomes a serious injury. That's what happened to Naseem Shah with his shoulder. Before the
yeah, like I don't, and I mean this doctor guy, like he's the same guy, right? Who Najam Sethi brought back, right? Like this
yeah.
guy was
Yeah,
kicked
this
out
guy has a
because
history of doing this. I'm forgetting his name, but he has a history of
so
doing this.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, repetitive mistakes over and over. I mean, managing your player's injury is like one of the simplest things you can do. Yeah, matlab, I just don't understand what's the problem, right? It's not like matlab, Najam Sethi has to do the surgery himself. Yeah, matlab, what's the big, like, even if you tell the player you have a problem, like, and he can take care of it himself, right? But at least give them the opportunity to know, man. Like Abrar has been sitting on this bench for God knows how long, right? You took him for the World Cup, right? He's just sat through. He didn't play any cricket, right? And everybody was like, Abrar ko वापस lao, Abrar ko वापस lao, Abrar ko वापस lao. And एक तो हमारा जो टीम में नहीं होता ना, we love that guy. This is our thing. Like whoever's not in the team, he's our favorite.
जो बाहर
So
बैठे
now
हैं वो
Abrar is
जबरदस्त
injured.
हैं बस जो खेल
Yeah,
रहे हैं वो
अब
जटिल हैं
आधा पाकिस्तान Abrar को गालियां दे रहा है. Like, everybody's like Numan, like the other Muchar guy, I forgot his name,
Sajid
साजिद
Khan.
खान
Yeah,
Sajid Khan. Right? So this is the
yeah.
big problem. Up the thing is that Sajid Khan all of a sudden is probably chilling somewhere. Now all of a sudden he has to be in Australia and play. You know?
He's not. I don't think
और
they're
अब
gonna
वो
play him.
No, I think they're going to play Noman Ali.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, with
Simply
the
because they
Australian, I
think
don't
he's
know
famous.
what you guys have decided on the Australian batting lineup, but based on the Australian batting lineup, I would probably play an off spinner because they probably have more lefties than righties.
Yeah, so I have their probable 11. I was going through. So they're not playing. I don't know if you guys know Lance Morris. He's like a
Yeah,
really they're really
debutant.
high on
Yeah,
this guy. He can bowl
yeah,
150 plus. But they
yeah.
they selected him in the squad, but they're not playing him. So this is I
यार
was
हमें दे
reading
दो
an
हम खिला
article.
देंगे. We can play him.
हमें ही दे दो यार. We don't have any pace in this lineup. But I'll read through their. I was reading an article on the age.com.au yesterday, and they had their probable 11. So I don't know if this is final,
Uh-huh.
but so they have Warner and Usman Khawaja, two lefties opening, and then Labuschagne, Steve Smith, Travis Head, Mitchell Marsh, Alex Carey, Pat Cummins, Mitchell Stark. So this is no surprises here. Mitchell Stark, Nathan Lyon, Josh Hazelwood. So there's one, two,
So छह
three.
lefties तो हो गए.
Yeah, yeah. On that, I will agree that maybe Sajid Khan would be a better option. लेकिन वो तो अभी, as far as I know, कल तक तो वो दुबई में था. He's gonna get there.
Yeah.
उसका time zone off हुआ होगा बेचारे का. And then yeah, maybe you play him. To be honest, I don't think the spinner is gonna make that big of a difference at first, but
Yeah.
um, it is what it is. I don't know what we're gonna do. Uh, yeah, that's it, man. First test. I don't really know how we can avoid an innings defeat here. Honestly, I think it's gonna be bad
By
uh,
not playing.
by not playing. If it rains 5 days, we'll be okay. I think.
No, that's not happening, bro. Whatever had to happen happened weather-wise. There was like a hailstorm, and then like there was rain and stuff. But abhi to it's like peak summer in Australia started. Everybody's looking forward to it, and that's the thing now. Like, I mean, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, you lose the first test badly, it's okay. You're just starting off the tour, right? For me, it's always like how you end your tour in Australia, right? But मसला ये हमारा एंड होते होते तक भी लाइक वो T20s आ जाते हैं, उसमें हमारी और भड़कास निकल जाती है. So कुछ कुछ बचता ही नहीं ना एंड तक. There's nothing left,
Yeah, yeah.
लाइक लास्ट टाइम हमने अपनी पूरी यूथ को पिटवा दिया था ऑस्ट्रेलिया से, राइट? वो T20 में एंड में हसनैन भी आ गया था. वो सब पिटे लाइन से, जितनी हमारी यूथ थी. लाइक मूसा तो इज नोवेयर टू बी सीन नाउ आफ्टर दैट
Yeah.
टूर, you
I was
know
ये सब
thinking
खेल
about
रहा है
that.
बेचारा.
but you see, right, that's what I'm trying to say,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
a lot of guys that you take for an
They
Australian
didn't
tour.
they didn't play him in like emerging Asia Cup. They didn't play him in like the Olymp or whatever, the Chinese Asian games or whatever. They haven't played him in anything. Mohammad Musa. I have not seen him play at all.
They'll probably say he's already emerged na, so like what, he's already
Yeah.
emerged.
Yeah, but what's his
Emerging
name
category
was
में नहीं आता.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy that like there's nowhere to be found now.
So your ZK,
Yes,
your lineup is pretty much what I had for the first
yeah,
match. So you are a good guest. You should
great
come
minds,
on more often.
great
These guys
minds,
had
great minds.
these guys had Surfraz and Imam opening. So these guys suck.
Sarfraz and Imam opening.
Sorry, sorry, Surfraz in for Rizwan
Oh,
and
okay, okay.
Imam in for Saimu is what I meant.
Yeah. When
I
you
don't
said
remember what my
Sarfraz and Imam
11
opening,
was.
I'm like, that's the reason for 22 subscribers.
That would be it. That would be it. Yeah.
But to be honest, like, I mean, see, I don't have a problem with Sarfraz or Imam. My only thing is that when you move forward, right, you really move forward, right? But if you're
That's
moving
exactly
forward
what
with
my point
Imam
was
was
with
like one
Surfraz.
of the biggest problems of the World Cup, right? Like, and and Vesibi, I think he's let go of himself. Like, I'm looking physically, he looks like unfit to me, Imam. Lately, I don't know if you guys been noticing, like,
अभी तो उसकी शादी हुई
I
है बेचारे की. He's still recovering from
yeah,
that.
वो जो भी हुई है, that's not my problem, right? Like, I mean, but the thing is that like his fitness is off. Like, uh, uske alawa Sarfraz ko bhi, when I look at him, I just feel that, you know, a few years back, Sarfraz would have made sense. As much as I love Sarfraz, like, a great guy, great servant of the country and everything. But the thing is, ki, ab ho gaya, that time is over, like,
Exactly. That's
he's done
exactly
what
what
he
I was
could,
like. We were chatting
right?
on WhatsApp yesterday, and I was saying that like Sarfraz,
After
sure,
the tour match, Surfraz is done. So, like, I mean, and I even was watching in Qaid Azam Trophy. He dropped, or even like National T20. I don't know if he played any of those games, but one of those two I was watching, and he dropped a couple catches, and it was like, ugh, like it's not like
yeah,
it's like
he
you're.
watched two go by him in the tour
That's
match,
crazy.
and
That's
that's
I
like,
wild.
think it's reflexes, right? Like, I mean, to be honest, like for a keeper especially, like, your reflexes are, which is why, like, as much as I love Azam Khan when he bats, like, this is my biggest problem with him, that, like, your primary job, if it's keeping, then, and especially like, with this weak bowling lineup, every catch is gonna matter, man. Like, every little chance is gonna matter. So you
And he's
have to
not going
go
to
in with.
score enough runs to cover that up. So I think he's going to struggle with the bat if he and
But
I
that
think he is
even
going to
matters,
play.
right? Like, I mean,
I think Shan Masood has already said that they're going to play Sarfraz, which I think is a bad decision. But
Did he say that
what can we
already?
do? We talked about it last time. He was talking after like practice before the tour match, and he said that we prefer. He alluded to the fact that they prefer to play Sarfraz right now, which is
yeah,
like
एक तो
Yeah,
PCB has to
I'm
stop
not
doing
on
this.
that
This ये
anymore.
जो ये they
I
make
agree.
these
I agree.
announce these decisions right beforehand. Like where बीच में तो they started doing videos of like the lineup coming up. They have to stop doing this shit. They did that in the Asia Cup where they dropped like Fakhar Zaman and brought in and dropped him, and then all of a sudden Imam was injured and they brought like Fakhar back, and Haris was basically selected initially to open. But then because Imam was injured, they brought Fakhar back and Fakhar opened again, which like made no fucking sense to me. एक
Yeah,
बंदे को
there is
drop
no
किया है,
reason. There is no
right?
reason you need to say that like a week in advance. That here's the guy we want to
So,
play.
so that's what
Shut
it
up
is, right?
and
And
wait
I
until
just
toss, right?
feel Sir ye Sean might fall into the same category. Like, he looks like the guy who's probably gonna listen to somebody and like do things because I want to take charge,
Easily,
man. Like,
easily influenced, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
I mean
all
that,
like this is Pakistan. Like this is all senior culture, right? Like some
dude. This is
36
what
year
they
old
did to
Sarfraz
like
comes
Bobber
in the
too,
team. Now
right?
we have to play him because fucking he's experienced and shit like that.
This is what
Like
they
you
did to
said,
Bobber.
ZK,
I mean,
move on. Like move on from these guys. If you intend, Rizwan is 31 years old. He's played one tour in Australia. If he plays this one, he's not going to play. We know that now. But if he plays this one, that's two tours under his belt. And then he's been 35. Assuming we tour after 4 years again, he'll be 35. You can play him at that time. If Sarfraz plays, who's your keeper for the next one? You have to think about the future too at some point, right? Like who's your test keeper moving forward? It can't be. How long is Sarfraz going to play? 1 more year? 2 more years? That's it, right? Like you got to think about like the future of this team too. I don't
like,
know.
yeah,
Johan,
what
this
are
is the
you getting out of
same.
him,
This
right?
is the same people
Exactly.
that.
You're not getting anything valuable out of him right now. I think.
Like,
Uh,
what is the
if
point? That is the right thing, right? What you've brought up is that if Surprise plays right now, what does that do? I mean, sure, Surprise should continue to play domestic because I mean he's grooming players. I understand that, but playing for the national side, like, what is he really bringing to the table? Like, he's not going to be part of anything, right? So it's time to really like instead of maybe taking in Surprise, I would take in Rizwan along with a junior keeper who can be Pakistan's future for upcoming
yeah.
tours, give him some exposure to Australia, which makes more sense that, okay, this is what we're thinking about,
Yeah,
right?
and all
But right now,
that aside,
taking,
like all the future shit aside, even if we just even if you look at merit, I think merit in this scenario should be who's the better keeper, and we all know Rizwan is a better keeper. He should get to play. If you need to put batting aside, I think in this case, I think that in these conditions, Rizwan is a better batsman, anyways. But even if you say that Sarfraz has played better recently domestically, he had a good home series against New Zealand last time he played at home. Even if you go by that, I think the better keeper needs to play. And like you said, dropping catches in these it's not going to help. You're not going to win anything.
I mean, Australia went on with Tim Payne primarily because of his keeping skills, and they had made it very clear that we want to take a proper keeper in the team,
Yeah.
and we don't
And
really want to
if
take
you take a look
somebody
at
with a great
back
batter.
the last Ashes that just happened, right? They picked Bairstow in place of Ben Folks, and they really
Yeah,
struggled. He was not as good behind the stumps. A lot of English media was on their case.
it matters, man. Like, yeah, 5 days of
It
keeping
really
matters.
matters.
Like,
Yeah.
2020 is 2020 mein to, Azam Khan is also, I don't know if you saw National T20. Azam Khan took
I
this
saw a little
diving
bit,
catch.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That was I
somersault.
saw a clip of that today this morning, and it was pretty ridiculous catch for somebody like him. That was a pretty ridiculous catch
Now I don't know if it was a great catch or it turned into a great one because he's so
because of
big
how slow
and
he ran.
yeah. So I don't know, but I'm
Yeah,
saying 4 overs anybody can. I mean, sorry, 20 overs anybody can do it, right? But 5 days, it's not a joke.
yeah, definitely.
And
But yeah,
Surfraz had
man.
started aging in 2019, man. You know the famous him yawning meme.
Yeah, yeah, that was
He had started aging
it
then.
was
So
it was all downhill from there. I
yeah,
think for us. But yeah, man, this tour is kind of like I'm always excited for the Australian tour, but this like I don't know, it's depressing. Last 4 years ago, I was like we're not gonna win anything. This time, I'm like we're not gonna win anything. I'd be happy with a draw. Honestly, I would celebrate that like crazy. But I don't think we're gonna get a draw. Honestly, I
a
think
draw would be nice. Like like a boxing test draw would be. क्या time आ गया यार
standards
draw की
देखो
बात.
यार हमारे बॉक्सिंग डे टेस्ट ड्रॉ हो जाए तो बड़ा मजा आएगा.
But see, our problem is we say stuff, Bagher. everybody will be glued to their TVs and watching the full game. So unfortunately,
हाँ, रात के 3
that's
बजे
the
खत्म
harsh
होगा।
reality. टीम तो बगैरत है ही, हम भी
यार
साथ
ये
में बगैरत हैं।
पहला मैच जो है, व्हाई इज इट एट 9:20 ईस्टर्न टाइम? आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड। सारे मैच बाकी के 6:30 पे शुरू हुए हैं। आई डोंट नो, डू यू गाइस नो व्हाई? इज पर्थ इन अ डिफरेंट टाइम जोन?
So yeah. So basically, like if you look at Australia, right? Like Perth is like just their western side, right? So it is like compared to MCG or Sydney or any other places. It's I think a 4 or 5 hour difference. Just like for us, Vancouver, East Coast, West Coast, it's a similar sort of situation. So Perth is like further, way further west, which is why even when I went to Australia for the World Cup, I didn't travel to the Perth games because it was just way off, and you had to take like a 5-6 hour flight, right, to get there.
I didn't realize it was that far. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on, I guess. This is like, we'll see what happens. Wednesday, 9:20, I think, PM our time is the game. So we'll be glued to that, like you said. And 12 बजे के बाद I think we'll be, अगर हमने पहले बैटिंग की तो शायद हम आउट हो चुके होंगे हमारे
Yeah.
रात के 11 बजे तक.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to something else, right? We already talked about if he's complaining about these pitches, whatever it is, he can do that all he wants. I don't think there's anything wrong with the pitch that was there. Honestly, I think if anything, that should
I
have
mean,
helped us.
it was a bit on the slower side, and especially
Yeah, it was slow, but I just
out-
don't think there is anything wrong with the home side doing that. India does it all the time, right? And we give them a lot of shit for it. But
but this time, like, I don't know whoever brought up this point, but it was probably them not doing anything. Yeah, it's a few days before
yeah,
they had a
yeah,
hailstorm,
yeah,
and this is just like a Prime Minister 11's game. So I don't think they did much, or maybe it's I don't know. Ever since they won that World Cup, they've just become fan of that
yeah.
kind of pitch.
But you're right. I think it was kind of complacent. I don't know, like the outfield was very slow. Grass seemed a little bit tall. Ball was not traveling to the boundary. It was kind of weird. Like
Bro, it was like a Canadian environment. Like, it felt like this is like a 7 a.m. T25 game at
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Dixie 407 ground or
In
something.
in Hamilton,
That's
yeah,
how horrible. Yeah, that's how horrible. Bro, घास नहीं कटा हुआ था. So I just don't know,
yeah.
like, if it was
Yeah, the
rushed.
the first the
Uh,
first boundary that I thought, the first boundary that Abdullah Shafiq hit and didn't even travel. I was like, what the fuck is this? This is like so like, this is amateur shit, right? But anyways, let's move on. So David Warner's last series, we should talk about him, right? His last test series. I don't know if you guys saw the column that Mitchell Johnson wrote on this guy. And Pakistan went to Australia. These guys all started behaving like Pakistanis. Um, this guy, basically, he
yeah.
was just berating him. He talked about the sandpaper scandal and all that. He said he never really owned up to it. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but yeah, last test series for him. Hopefully, we can make it a bad one for him. But I think he's going to score a lot of runs, especially against this
He
quick
always
bowling attack.
does.
Yeah, he always
Yeah, this will be nice for David Warner.
he
I
had
There's
think.
a
the.
reason. There's a reason he chose this series to be his
Yeah,
last.
That's
right.
what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Yeah, there's a reason
No,
he
I think
chose
it was
this one.
more like Boxing Day and home series and blah blah blah. But yeah, there's most likely an underlying reason why he chose this one. Not an India
Having
series or an
Pakistan as an
England
opponent
series.
also helps, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's
I don't
good
know
though.
how
I
many.
think he does deserve like a farewell series. He's done so well for them over the years, and even though Mitchell Johnson, there must be some like personal beef in there because it felt super personal. Some of the things he had written in there. It's just like
It
the
just came
vibe
out
and
of
the tone
nowhere,
of that
too,
whole
right?
thing.
Like it just
Hmm
came out of nowhere. Nobody was like really talking about it, and then he just wrote it and kind of blew up on the media. But
He also brought George Bailey into it because he's the selector. So he brought George Bailey into it, and the one thing I didn't like is, Mitchell Johnson does have a history of like mental health issues while he's been touring, like depression and stuff like that, and it became like really apparent. I think after he retired, he like came out about it, and George Bailey was like, "Oh, I hope he's okay," which kind of puts the onus on his mental health issues. It just kind of seems like a low blow where it's like, "Oh, like is something wrong with you?" I didn't like that. I thought that was like stupid. But I think as a columnist, they were probably giving him the opportunity to write what he wants, and he's just voicing his opinion. But there was a personal side to it for sure.
yeah, I couldn't read the article. I tried to look for it, and it was behind a paywall. So I was like, I don't care about this enough to buy this or look for a free version of this. But yeah, I didn't read it. Sorry, ZK, go ahead.
No, but I think there's definitely something personal behind it, but at the same time, I mean, I don't disagree with his sentiments because when I was in Australia, I saw something very similar. So I had talked to a lot of people, and anybody you would talk to, right? Like they were not interested in cricket, and you'd be like, "Yo," I'm talking about people my age. I'm not talking about like younger people, just people my age, and they were just like really pissed off, and they had not moved on from that whole sandpaper incident. So they're like, why are these guys in the team? So I think it's a general sentiment. Like it's probably not just him. They probably never really like highlighted it much on TV and stuff, and kind of like, once the guys apologized, served their ban, they kind of like brushed it under the rug. But generally Australians are really proud people, and I don't think the nation has forgiven them much. It's just that the newer guys are kind of like, they've become fans of David Warner, whatnot, but like people that are our age have still not forgiven. And there is, I could see it. It was very like obvious. Like, a lot of people that I talked to were like, these guys can
Yeah.
like, F off, and
Do you
like,
do you think the
they really
sentiment
like,
would have changed after they've this is what they've done, right? They retained the Ashes. They won the World Test Championship. They won the T20 World Cup, and they won the ODI World Cup now.
no, I mean,
This is
100% they did that.
that's a
But like,
lot of
I'm
accomplishment.
just saying
Do
that,
you,
I'm just saying it's more so against the players. I think in particular
Yeah.
Steve Smith and David Warner.
so do you
People
think
had those sentiments. Yeah.
the sentiment's the same for Steve Smith that it is for David Warner? Because David Warner is like an asshole, right? Like that was his whole look, his vibe, everything about him was like, I'm, a true Aussie kind of thing, right? Like I'm an
I mean, that's what
asshole.
I always thought
Yeah,
too. But then I saw
yeah.
the guy dancing to like
After
Indian songs and shit on TikTok, and
But
I don't
that's
know.
after this whole thing happened. His whole image changed, right? Like
Yeah,
after this whole thing happened, because if you recall, like the Ashes series where him and I forgot who it was. I think it was Johnny Bairstow. Like they had a few words for each other, and it was like some pretty messed up stuff. Like when they were
There
going up
was
to the
a
dressing
Quentin de
room.
Kock thing too, right? I think it was in the same
Oh, yeah,
series where with the sandpaper. I don't
the
know. Yeah, it was
sandpaper
the same
happened.
series.
Yeah,
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 where
yeah,
they
yeah.
yeah,
got into a fight in the
yeah.
tunnel there, and
And
yeah, it
Steven
was.
Smith's never been that guy. He's always been so hyper focused on his own cricket. He doesn't
Yeah.
really sledge. He doesn't really get into like any sort of beef with anyone. So that's why I'm asking. Do you think the sentiment's the same? Because Cameron Bancroft is like
Because
nowhere to
that's
be
what
found except for
Bancroft
TM's
nobody's cared
11.
about, right? Like
Yeah,
Bancroft
he's
Bancroft
a
played the
nobody's
Prime
rookie.
cared
Minister's
about.
11 game. I don't know. He opened
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
innings for
yeah.
that.
they are saying that he is somebody that might take over like David Warner's position.
I mean, he's a big prospect, right? He always was. Like, I
He
mean,
always
Bancroft
was,
was
yeah.
supposed to be the next in line, like,
Oh yeah,
after like,
he was really good too. I think that hit
yeah,
him like psychologically too because he wasn't
Well,
anywhere
because
near the
they
radar for the
threw him
last.
under the bus too, right? They made him do the press
Hmm.
conference, and he took ownership of it, and then
I mean,
after that,
Labuschagne basically got his spot because of Bancroft. Like that was going to be
yeah,
Bancroft's spot, basically, right? Because he was
Labuschagne
next
took
in line.
full advantage of that and killed it.
I mean, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy was playing Test cricket in the One Day World Cup, man. So of course he did.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when
Well, they
scores are
also,
that low, it's okay to do that.
I don't know if Labuschagne took his because Bancroft used to open. Will
Yeah,
Pukovsky was another really good opener that they had. I think he played one Test match and then
yeah,
he got injured really badly.
yeah.
He's had like
So-
eight like concussions or more. These guys
yeah,
has had multiple freak accidents.
but he
Like
was
to
supposed to
them,
be a
like
really
they,
big prospect too.
yeah, he's been told to quit cricket, but he said he's hoping to keep going.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
crazy
fuck
though.
Australia. They have a lot of good
Yeah,
players. We
yeah,
give
dude,
us
they
some
have
others.
like so many.
And it's
And
wild
like,
that
I
how
mean,
good their players are, and this is like maybe the fifth or sixth most popular sport in their country.
see, and that is another thing that I witnessed myself, that like, that cricket came way after, like, a lot of other things, like, like guys like Michael, like Stoinis, right? Like it probably just like working out somewhere in the gym, and some guy goes like, "Aaja bhai, cricket khel le." And like this is how these guys have become cricketers, right? uh they had to be like, rejected from like Aussie rules and like rugby and like a bunch of other things eventually to end up in cricket, right? So this is their like fourth, fifth
Yeah,
tier of
yeah, you're
athletes,
right.
right?
I feel like a lot of Australian athletes are like multi-sport people. Like you
Yeah,
said, I think Alex Carey is another one who I think played like Aussie rules football or like rugby or
yeah,
something. They have a female tennis player. I follow tennis. Ash Barty. I don't know if you guys know her. She used to be a
yeah,
cricket
yeah.
player, and then she was a tennis player. There's another soccer. I'm forgetting her name, but
I
there's
mean,
another
so their fast bowler, I keep forgetting her name. Their women's team, I think she's captaining now.
Alyssa
Uh,
Healy.
No, no, not Alyssa Healy.
Meg
Elise
She's
Lanning.
McLanning is a
Elise Perry.
batter,
Elise
right?
Perry. Elise Perry.
Mm.
Elise Perry
She married to Mitchell Stark.
No, that's Elisa Healy, but I'm talking about Elise
Oh,
Perry.
they have so much
Elise,
shit going on in there.
yeah,
Mitchell Starkey, baby. that's
That's her
yeah.
that's
second
the one.
sport.
that's, that's their other job. Her other.
But Elise Perry actually plays. It represents Australia in women's soccer as well.
Yes, that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, they're multi
Yeah.
man.
Well,
And she
Bubber
goes
eats
in.
biryani as a second fucking sport. They have
Yeah,
biryani eating
Babar
contest.
basically just I don't know plays with Imam as a second sport. I don't know.
Yo, man, that's harsh,
Like
dude.
that friendship has
That's
hurt
harsh, and I
Pakistan
don't
a
like
lot.
it.
Plays with his mom's lully, right? That's his
Oh
second sport.
my
Pretty much, I
gosh,
think
you
that's what it is.
guys. Uh,
I
I
love it.
find that
Okay,
heavily disrespectful. He plays with
to who?
Zimbabwe as
Babar or Imam?
his second. Yeah, Zimbabwe
uh,
is gonna do something big in Australia.
No, because I follow Babar's brother has a YouTube channel, and
Oh
he
yeah,
does.
yeah, so he just basically his channel is him somehow trying to get Babar in his videos. So he has a YouTube channel, and that's what I see all the time. Like Babar and Imam just like just doing everything together. Like they work out together. They're like eating food together. They're playing like tennis ball, cricket together. So
Go to sleep
and it
together.
shows.
shit, man.
I
That
don't know.
changes a lot
Probably
of opinions on this podcast, dude. If we watch those videos, yeah.
we should maybe we
No,
should do an
I
episode
mean
on
everybody
like
knows they're good friends, right? We should do a deep dive analysis into this, do some investigative journalism, and figure out what's going on with Babar and
we
Imam.
should we should.
All right, yeah, let's move on. I guess Asad Shafiq retires from cricket. What do you guys think? He's
Did Asad
a
Shafiq
consultant.
retire from cricket to become a selector, or did he become a
Yeah,
selector and then retire?
I think he retired because he became selector. I think that's what it
I
is.
mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
saw
almost
his
like, was it
website.
the chicken egg first or the egg first? That's the question here with Asad
I mean,
Shafiq.
he got the job, and then he was like, I guess I should quit, right? Like, I think that's what happened.
No,
Yeah,
I think Salman
that's the
Butt
dumb
got the
shit.
job first. Then
Yeah,
Salman,
that's yeah. For one day,
It's the
then
right? For
million
Salman,
one
dollar.
day.
It's the $1 million question, right? Like, what came
yeah,
first with Asad Shafiq?
I think Salman Butt came first.
Yeah,
Salman, but yeah.
yeah, and then the journalist got to him.
Like it's
एक
crazy how like our country works. वैसे एक बंदा selected announce होता है. Like he's just been announced. Like people, he's not even been announced, and people lose their shit. Like, and Wahab then has to come up and say, we were thinking, but because of the response, we have decided
Yeah,
not to anymore.
and he also highlighted Karachi kid journalist.
Yeah.
That was funny, man.
So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No,
pretty
Wahab is
crazy.
doing a great job. The poor guy gets like all this is his like group of cricketers for the first like assignment against Australia in Australia. And this is what he has. This is the pool of people he has to choose from. So
I mean, yeah,
it's
to be
good.
honest, like you can't really blame. We've often like blame selectors, but I just personally feel that other than one or two selections, we have to admit that our pool of players is not something. I mean,
No, it's
I don't know if you guys
trash.
follow the National T20 Cup. I followed it. Yes, there are a couple of players that really stood out, but that was
Hmm.
about it, right?
Yeah, there's not many. And there's not anybody that's like new and exciting, right? There's nobody that you're like, "Oh shit, who's this guy? Like where'd he come from?" You know what I mean? Like it's just the same old shit happening over and over
I
again.
mean, Syme was one
Uh
guy who kind of like, we saw, and then all of a sudden, like, Syme was that one guy, and then everybody in the country knows that, okay, you know what, we have that
mhm.
one guy, right?
Mhm.
So,
I think the last like bowler that took us by storm was like Naseem Shah. After that, I haven't seen anybody that's come up and you're like, oh shit. Like Hardest Rauf, obviously we were happy with him when he came up as like T20 bowler. He did sick in Australia, yada yada. But there's been nobody. And even like if you think about like again back to emerging Asia Cup, Asian Games, dude, they played like trash. Like this is what our pool is. Like you don't send like players you have no like plan for the future, right? But this kind of pushes me towards did you watch the under 19 game? Well, I don't know if it was
I,
broadcast. I never watched it. The under
I did,
19
I
India
did,
Pakistan game?
yeah, I
Oh,
did,
you did watch
and
it?
yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean,
dude.
again, like I saw some excitement there, and I've
Mhm.
always seen excitement on under 19 level, but then I don't know where it goes after that, right? It's
So
the same thing where you see Anwar Ali, the daddy of swing, and then you see Anwar Ali, and you're like, okay,
you
like
see
what
him in
happened
the
in the
in
middle,
the final?
right?
Did you see him in the national T20 final? Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
yeah,
so
there's nothing there anymore.
right,
And what's it called? Um Pakistan Junior League, dude. That
yeah.
when Ramiz came up with that, I was like, this is brilliance. Like, this is what's gonna really, really help us, put our best foot forward and bring in some new talent, some new blood. And then, they scrapped it the
And
moment
so
Ramiz got kicked.
a couple of guys
They,
from the
yeah,
junior
that's what I
league,
mean.
like
That
the
the
tall bowler, like
Yeah, the what's his name? One of them is Nasheem Shah's brother, but what's that one
the other
guy's
guy.
name?
I think his
Shameen
name,
Unver or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah. So
he's really good. He's injured,
yeah.
but he wasn't playing in that game. But I know him, and then a couple of the guys actually in the Pakistan team, they killed it. When it comes to
Oh, 100%. This is the first time I've seen a batting side. Like, I mean, if you're gonna go watch that game, Pakistan had top five batters were all lefties. So we batted with like five left-handers at the top, and they pretty much finished the game. And
Mhm.
like,
It was
India
almost
had a
like an
great,
opposite, right? Like this is how
yeah.
Pakistan, the national team, plays against India, and
That's
the
that,
Indian
that,
team comes out so confidently. And Pakistan, in turn, were like, you know what? Screw these guys. Like
dude.
we're
Even right
coming
now,
out.
the girls are killing it in New
Girls are
Zealand.
killing it. I
So
mean, they're not doing so well right now. They're playing the first ODI, but I
yeah,
mean, the confidence and everything. It feels like it's almost like. Do you watch basketball?
yeah.
College ball is like people play with heart. They're like doing their best, and then the NBA compared